Yay Networks.
Welcome to the Great Girlfriends podcast, where we discuss life, love, laughter, and everything in between. I'm your host, Sybil, and I can't wait for you to hear all of the Great Girlfriend magic on today's show. So without further ado, grab something great to drink, grab your pen and your paper, and get ready for this week's episode. Enjoy! Hey, great girlfriends. Happy Wednesday. Happy end of June. I hope all is amazing in your world as it is in mine. I'm literally recording this with the waves crashing in Cabo, Mexico at Girlfriends Retreat. And this has been a 4-day curated experience by Shanique Bonelli Moore, who's the founder of Girlfriends Retreat. Shout out to Shanique. Which was curated to bring women together in a celebration of sisterhood and just to connect and convene with new and old girlfriends. And it has been the much needed closing to my month of June. So yay me, yay us. And I'm super, super happy to have had this time here with these waves crashing in. Now for the news of the week. I am so excited because this week's episode is a glimpse into our May activation, which was FriendFest, the live experience in New York City. And I've spoken about FriendFest, so you've heard the point of FriendFest. You understand the mission and what I seek to bring to life and what I've been working on. And this was a very heavily curated moment that I brought together in New York in partnership with Nikia McLean from Support Your Girlfriends and Luminary New York City. Shout out to Kate Luzio. And I'm just super excited to have you listen to this episode on entrepreneurship and being collaborative in your community building. Dr. Jatali Bellanton and Brandice, you all know Brandice, were both there at the event to share their stories of entrepreneurship, to share their stories of building and climbing to create something that's meaningful and purposeful in business for them and keeping themselves authentic along the way. And so many times we hear these stories where women feel like they have to trade a piece or a fraction of their identity to get to where they want to go or to achieve the status that they like to achieve. And these two women have really broken down what it looks like for them to do, to develop their businesses authentically and to always keep their core very honest and intentional. So I'm super excited for you to listen to this week's episode and to catch the energy of that New York experience. And let me just say that the tour is not stopping in New York. We are continuing to jump around the nation, and you'll hear more about those dates as they arrive. But do enjoy this week's episode. And then when you're done, do me a favor. I need at least 5 more iTunes reviews just from this episode alone. And I know you can do it. Just take a second to head over to iTunes or go into iTunes and search The Great Girlfriends, scroll to the bottom and write your review. And make sure you tell the world how much you love this podcast. And thank you so much for being faithful listeners to the podcast and faithful members of the community. It helps us to do great work to build lots of connections and continue the impact of the show. So enjoy. Love you. Bye. Okay, I'm super excited to welcome 2 entrepreneurs to the microphone tonight that have so much to share with you about their journeys, their highs, lows, and all the in-betweens, and nuggets for every one of us. Who could use some extra wisdom? You can never have too much wisdom.
All of us.
Applicable wisdom. So I want to welcome to the stage first Dr. Jatali Bellanton. Hey, friend.
Hey, you stuck with me, friend. Hello.
And come on up, Brandice Daniel.
Hey, sister.
Oh my goodness. All right. I know y'all got questions already, and you're trying to figure out who they are, what they do, and how they do what they do. So I'm not going to share that. I always love when great women come out and you're able to reflect who you are, what you do, and how you do yourself. So I'm going to start with you, Dr. Jatali Bellanton. Would you mind telling us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Cheers, everyone. I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Cheers, everyone. I'm Dr. Jatali Bellanton. My students call me Dr. J. And unfortunately, most of them don't know who the basketball player is. So I'm always like, what you know about my three-pointer? And they're looking at me like, what are you talking about? So former investment banker, been in finance for 21 years. My story in finance actually started in the States, although I'm from Manchester, England. I did a year and a half of school, actually in Queens, Andrew Jackson, if anyone knows of it.
Wow. That's my hood, Dr. J.
I mean, so I was in England, and I was like, I wanted to be closer to my stepmother, my mother figure, and she was living in Brooklyn. And when you look up Andrew Jackson, they make it look like this bougie school. And I was like, Daddy, I want to go to law and government. And then he's like, okay, no problem. So I get to the hood, and I'm like, oh, snaps, where am I? But being amongst certain communities made me realize the importance of financial literacy. And so for me, between seeing my mother figure struggle with money, living borrow to borrow, and then going to Andrew Jackson and seeing just different demographics and seeing also how people are treated when they don't have a certain amount of money. Before I went back to England, I started a program to learn about money. And long story short, now 21 years later, I've worked in investment banking, I've worked in forensic accounting, I've had clients like Marc Jacobs, Oscar de la Renta, Gucci, the list continues, where we've managed their money, but we've also, I've personally taken a portfolio from 14 million to 104 million in a year and a half. So anything that has to do with multiplying money, making money, managing money, that's really where I come into play. And now we have an organization called Kids Bank. And Kids Bank to date has gone into 300 schools around the United States. So that's where my entrepreneurship comes in, and I'm an international investor in real estate, and just the list continues.
Wow. Impressive.
Yes, those applause. Look, you didn't even finish, and they were just like, yes, Dr.
We're gonna leave it right there. But I mean, you guys will learn more about me, but I'm very big into diversifying my portfolio, because when I looked at my affluent clients that I've had in the past, the three things I noticed is that they didn't pay full price for mostly nothing. Most of the stuff they received, is highly discounted or free.
Right.
And I also noticed that they diversify their portfolios. And so diversification didn't just mean real estate and stocks and crypto, but it also meant other countries. And so now the space that I'm in as an adult, I want to make sure like I own 90 properties in 7 countries. And so like that has been so like I want that.
Again?
You see how casual that was? I own 90 properties in 70 countries. I mean, but she does, like she's been doing it, so it's not.
Yeah, like, it wasn't like overnight. It was like years of I'm gonna act like struggling, like years of penny pitching, years of team no sleep. And now I can sleep. And now I can relax with you guys. But even when I was out there, some people might meet me and be like, this girl's a bitch. Like, she's on her phone the whole time. And I'm like, this is my winning season. So like even taking 2 hours out of my life right now is like, oh snaps, do I have 2 hours? And I'm like, for Sybil, I do. So always. I mean, now for Nakia, of course.
Dr. J is stuck with me. All my friends in here will tell you, you are stuck with me.
Yes.
Right, Kelly? Right, Shay? Right, Twin? Right, Safi? Right, Marisha? You are stuck with me. Right, Sybil?
Yes, absolutely. Stuck.
Stuck.
Brandice. Right? Woo!
Love us some Brandice.
Who did the woo?
That might go with Brandice.
I need all this love today.
Girl.
Today has been an entrepreneurial doozy of a day. First of all, I'm checking out these earrings. Are those small? I mean,
Yes, they are.
Smith.
Yes, they
So
are.
cute.
So
And she
fire.
got on her Sergio Hudson jacket. I'm just saying.
I mean, when we become wealthy, it's important that we patronize our community. And so when I speak at major events where I know that we're going to have a room filled with people, I make sure that no matter what, at least one item is Black owned. So today it was 3 items. This hat is Fruition, which is a Black owned hat company in Atlanta. The blazer Sergio Hudson, which Brandice put me onto actually. And then this is Simone and Mary J. Blige's collaboration in Sister
cute.
Love. And we dripping in Black women and Black man magic today.
I love it. I noticed the earrings. I'm like, ooh, those are dope. First of all, I'm so excited to be here. I've heard of the dream of FriendFest for a long time, and I'm so excited to be sitting here under the FriendFest sign. I'm Brandice Daniel. I'm the CEO and founder of Harlem's Fashion Row and Icon 360. Oh, y'all the best. Harlem's Fashion Row, we are a platform that acts as a bridge between designers of color and brands. And so we do that through events, collaborations, pipeline programs, and brand strategy. And we also started a nonprofit, Icon 360, in the middle of the pandemic in 2020 to provide resources and support to HBCU fashion departments as well as Black designers specifically. And we are celebrating 16 years this year. And thank y'all so much. And it's been such an amazing journey with lots of ups and downs, and I'm still on that journey. I don't say that we've made it yet, but it's so exciting to be where we are right now, and we're making a business pivot in the next year, which I'm really excited about. And I love entrepreneurship, and I love talking about it, and I'm so happy to be here with all of you, with Nakia, Sybil, and Dr. J, who's so freaking fabulous. I think you're gonna be stuck with me, and all of you all. So thank you.
Awesome. I love that. So I also want to add to your bios that you're wives, you're both wives, and you're both moms, right? That's something very important to add. There's so many layers to who you are, what you do, and how you do it. But I want to know from your perspective, what makes your business empowering as you see it? Whoever wants to take it first.
So for me, in 2007, that was when I started HFR. And I went down this journey of, I wanted to do it. It started out as an idea. I wanted to do a fashion show in Harlem. That was just the idea. And then when I started to research and look for more Black designers, I couldn't find them. And so I started going down website after website of brands that we love, department stores that we shop at all the time, and realized that less than 1% of the designers on those department store websites were Black designers. And then I said, well, let me see how much we're spending on clothes. I think we're spending a lot, but maybe I'm wrong. And I go and research, and at the time, we were spending over $22 billion a year on apparel and apparel products. And it was, what can I do to help fill in that gap? I think we're empowering now 3 people. We're empowering brands who need to be working with Black designers and need that sauce in their companies. We're also empowering consumers who want to shop Black brands but don't know how to do that or where to do that. We launched a website, HFR & Co., last year. And then, of course, the main focus for us is we're empowering Black and brown designers and giving them opportunities to be able to, partner with brands, create revenue opportunities for them, introduce them to new audiences, show them. I always say HFR is kind of like a frame for Black designers, and we try to create a really beautiful frame for them to show their collections. So they are our core. And then the last group is HBCU fashion departments. There's 27 HBCU fashion departments, and they are grossly underfunded. And so we have been able to give $500,000 for the last 2 years to HBCU fashion departments to really help to get them on par with other colleges and universities.
That's so good. How about you, Jatali?
So for me, it's 3 different ways. Creating Kids Who Bank, I knew that both of my parents had passed away before I was 21. So for me, it was very important when I became a mother that I left him some of my financial knowledge so that, because tomorrow's not promised, right? So he could have been 2 or 3 and I could have passed away, God forbid, right? And so creating the book, Wants versus Needs, which was a financial literacy book for kids, was just so I could teach him certain things like depreciation, because we're consumers, but we don't realize the marketing and branding that goes into what we purchase, right? The fact that things have a value and can go up and down. And so when you're purchasing, you should maybe think about that before you purchase, right? And so what I did as a mother, this book that was supposed to be for my son ended up becoming a school curriculum. So one of the things that I did in Empowering is making sure our children, as a consumer, understood that the $300 pair of kicks they had on cost $1 to $3 to make. That's marketing, that's branding. Teaching them that everything you have, whether it's a game console like your Xbox, might go down in value, right? And so your parent bought it for $300, but now it's only variety for maybe $75, right? And so when we explain these concepts, just making complicated things palatable And I'm very big about how do we restructure information so that rather you're 70 years old and you're hearing about the metaverse and crypto, that you know how to safely enter the space, and you also know how to understand that something like the blockchain just means a transparent ledger, right? Because it's a language that we understand because we all have bank accounts and know what a ledger is, right? So overcomplicated processes and simplifying it is one way I empower people. And the next thing is making sure that we create jobs and we give back. So one of the things I'm very big on is sustainable charity. So even with, as a person who loves to give, when we're raising up money for all these donations, I realized my mentor came to me. She's like, Jatali, you said you want to make 60 million this year. If you want to do 60 this year, you have to stop giving as much. And she's like, or you have to find a way to make sure your giving is not a burden. So what I created was the big companies, the big schools, contracts I was getting, I would then take 10 to 20% of every contract I receive to do charitable donations and give back. And so like in Ghana, we're building a youth-friendly event space. And every event that we have there, we'll take 10 to 20% to make sure via a lottery system, local youth can attend our programs and workshops. So it's not just a bougie building that they can pass but never enter, because that's what ends up happening in our community, right? The kids in the lower economic backgrounds can't afford the programming, and then they just get passed on by. And so even in the school systems, sometimes the gatekeepers, like the principals, have the money, and they don't want to spend it on financial literacy. They want to spend it on sports and music programs. And so when I noticed this problem, I would, instead of complaining about it, go, we'll do your school in East New York for free. We'll come to Compton and we'll do your school for free. The conversation then becomes, hey, since Malibu High School just gave me a ridiculous amount of money to do the school, I'm gonna take 20% of that contract to do Compton for free and pay my employees. And also making sure representation is there. So we're hiring people of color from Morgan Stanley, from Credit Suisse, from different establishments, so that they can also see that we're not just in sweatpants and pants below our butt, but we're also suited up in beautiful gowns and dresses, and we come in all shapes and sizes.
That was so good.
I love that. Cheers to both of you.
Yes.
Great girlfriends, I want to introduce you all to our newest friend, HelloFresh. I am so excited because HelloFresh is helping to make my life so much more simple this summer. They're taking all of the work out of eating well, and they are helping me feed my very, very hungry and selective children, Sam and Dylan. You guys know when your kids are home for summer, they like to eat all day, every day. And who has time to cook food all day, every day? I know I don't. And who has time to figure out what's for dinner with all of the activities that are going on in summer? So I'm super excited because all of that is being made simple. The guesswork is being eliminated, and all I have to do is answer the door, open the package, and set the food out. And let me tell you what happens in my house. My kids come, they take a look at what recipes we have because they look on the recipe cards, which are beautifully designed and have step-by-step recipes for every single meal. And then they pick the ones they want to cook by day, and my little chef Dylan loves to take her meal, break it out piece by piece, and put together the recipe. And then what do? I come down and I eat. And I'm happy. We're all happy, in fact, because there's enough food there for the entire family. So it's super cool for us. It's super easy. It's very convenient, and it's actually healthy. I'm talking about foods that you'll really be at peace with feeding your family and not really worrying about whether or not they're eating all the bad stuff. You have foods for no matter what your lifestyle. So if you're pescatarian or vegetarian, or if you're like Dylan calls herself, a meatitarian, there is something there for you. But guess what? I have the best, and I say best, I mean absolute best deal available. Go to HelloFresh.com/girlfriends16 and use code girlfriends16 for 16 free meals plus free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com/girlfriend16, and you're going to use code girlfriend16 for 16 free meals plus free shipping. And again, this is America's #1 meal kit, great girlfriends, and I'm telling you, my newest friend right at my doorstep, and it will be yours too. Enjoy.
So ladies, I mean, y'all are quite successful, but there was a journey, you said that, getting here. So what has support looked like for you when it comes to your girlfriends? Who wants to take that one?
I'm happy to take it. My girlfriends have been the foundation of my entrepreneurial journey. There's no way that I could have done this without people in my life like Sybil, like Nia, like Tiffany, who has to get some of my calls, like Joy. You know, there are so many people who have stood me up in different parts of my journey that was critical. And sometimes that was, you know, hey, I can come to your sofa and lay down and tell you everything that's happening, which I've done with Sybil and her husband many times. Sometimes it's, hey, let's walk in the morning just because I need to talk something out. In the very beginning, the very first show that I ever did, it was only my friends who were my staff. And so they provided money for car service. They provided flowers for the bathroom. One of my girlfriends, who's an ER doctor, went to Home Depot to get wood for the runway. And literally, she tells this story about her riding down the expressway with wood on the top, her holding it like this, and she's so short. So they have, I mean, still to this day, if in fact I needed to call my girls and say, hey, we don't have a brand partner for this event, I need this, that, they would be there. Yeah. And so that has been a critical part of my journey, is women and great relationships and great friendships. Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, it was interesting. I had to grow my friendships when it comes to the womenhood. So I worked in predominantly finance. So I'm surrounded by old Caucasian men my whole life, since the age of 16. And so for me, there's a lot of femininity that was missing in my lifetime. There's a lot of creativity that was missing. And they were just letting your hair down, right? So as a woman of color, especially in a male-dominated world, and then a Caucasian-dominated world, for me, sisterhood was important because sometimes you do want that sisterhood and just have someone to understand culturally what you're going through. And there are microaggressions that are happening in the workplace, and having someone to discuss that with and say, you know, like, am I getting gaslighted here? Or like, what's happening in this situation? Or having a moment where, I remember I usually have big curly hair, and I went into work. I was going to a wedding, so I straightened my hair to go into work. I just felt like straightening my hair, and this Irish woman told me, oh, you look so much more professional with your hair straight. And it took that sisterhood, and I was happy I had someone a sister to go back to, be like, girl, do you know what this woman told me today? But at that same point, sisterhood also shows up for me, and just knowing when I wanted to expand, it was important for me to see Black women who are multimillionaires, right? And because there's questions that sometimes you just want to ask somebody, right? And you would rather ask a woman than a man, right? Because sometimes when I go into these meetings, as a woman with big bosoms, you know, you have these men who are looking at you like an appetite. And I'm like, how do I make sure this conversation remains professional? So my sisterhood showed up in that mannerism of having women that I can go to say, how do I navigate this and circumvent being the boss, being the leader that's a female? And I remember one of the best advice I had from one female. She said, hey sis, you know what you do? You bring your secretary with you. It could be a male secretary or a female secretary, and you have him transcribe the meeting. So every time they ask you for a dinner, because you're in finance, so most of the meetings and conversations are happening around cocktails, right? And it's like the MO, like, do you want to get you drunk or some rubbish, right? And so she was like, bring your transcriber with you. No one in any meeting can ever tell you, especially if it's a professional meeting, that you can't bring your secretary to take notes. And so that became just even something so simple like that. If I didn't have a sisterhood of women that I could turn to have these conversations, it would be so important. But even as a mom, sometimes being like, okay, am I doing too much? You know, how do I balance motherhood, parenting, work life, and then having friends who fit those different niches? You know, some people call them mentors, but like for me, I look at my friends also as mentors in different categories, right? Because all your stuff might not be together, but you might be amazing at money. So I made my first million. Now, how do I get to my second? Then when I got to my second, how do I get to 50 or 60 million? How do I scale? And then the friends who are like, okay, how do you balance family life? And a husband who might want you to do dishes when you get home.
I'm not doing them.
And, you know, but having those conversations as to how do you then have that conversation, right? So sisterhood is so important, and having people in different categories, and realizing that there might not be one person who fits every bracket, but it's important to have those different people, and it's okay if those people don't blend together, sidebar. Yes. Right? Because sometimes you got the ratchet friend who needs to stay in the ratchet part of your life, right? And you got your posh friends who you might want to go to the gala with, right? And that was another thing for me, because I used to try to put everyone together, and I got to a moment where I realized not everyone fits together, right? Like, because you might have the friend who's trying to do the come up, right? And she's on her come up, and meanwhile, I have you as my guest so we could spread through this room and get all the contacts, and you too busy plugging yourself with this one person. Yeah. And I'm like, sis. Or the friend who's like, oh my God, that's Will Smith. I'm like, sis, no. Yeah. We can't walk into the room and act like that.
You can't come back.
Do it inside. That's not what we're doing here. Right here, everyone in this room is somebody, right? And when you know your value, also making sure that as women, sometimes when we walk into the room, that we're not the fangirl in the room that makes people be like, security. Right? So, yeah, that's my sisterhood.
That is so good. How good is that? So good. Y'all have really given us so much to think about. And I love that you are talking about the importance of knowing your value, because in this world with so much competition happening in business, and you know, I've heard so many women tell you, well, the ratio of men to women is this to this, right? And women are on the struggle bus, right? I hear these things from my single friends. It's easy for you to lose sight of your value. It's easy for you to think that someone else is more valuable than you, that their business is more valuable. Maybe they have more followers. Maybe they have more press coming their way. So it looks like, you know, they're the rock stars of an industry, and it can make you feel inferior. And that comes up a lot. Can anyone honestly say you okay, right? Like, it's like you're on the ground, you're like, wow, she's winning, and wow, she's winning, and I want to win too. And so value is so important, knowing and recognizing your own value. So in this world where we don't want to compete, we just want to have these amazing brands that are built on our value and the integrity of our brand. I mean, our value. How do you set yourself apart so that you're not competing against the saturation and the noise of saturation and the feeling like you got to be more than the next fashion brand, you got to be more than the next financial educator? How do you set yourself apart?
So 3 things. One, when we talk about value, what are your values, right? It's so important that you don't lose sight of what your values are. So one of my favorite hashtags, which is trademarked, be careful out there, is money is not my God, right? People used to go, how did you leave corporate making 6 figures to becoming an entrepreneur where you were making 0 and you don't eat if you don't kill, right? And so I remember just thinking like, well, money's not my God. It doesn't define who I am. It will not stop me from succeeding. And I'm willing to have some ramen noodle nights to succeed and get to what I want to do, right? And so it was easier for me to navigate water by knowing that that was my value, right? I knew that that wasn't going to define me. Rather, I need to do something for free because I love it enough. That was another thing, right? Because if money's your God, you can't take a free opportunity, right? And there's meetings and there was rooms that I needed to be in that years later now are loyal friends and relationships that are putting millions in my pocket and opening doors for major contracts, but I wouldn't have gotten those doors if 5 years ago I wasn't willing to do a school for free, if 6 years ago I wasn't willing to speak at a conference for free, or even donate sometimes to something someone else is doing and building out those relationships. And then another thing I would really say is you as a person, everyone is unique. Right? If you are happy and you show up as a happy person, great. If you walk in, like if I was in a cranky mood, guess what? I'm not gonna walk in here and put a fake smile on my face and pretend like I'm happy. I'll just be honest with it. I'm like, sis, today is a bad day because I'm human. And guess what happens when you are not showing up as yourself? People can feel it, they can see it. And so when I used to try to do the whole fake smile thing, and people be like, you know, when I first met you, I thought you were a bitch. And I'm like, really? Oh, excuse me, am I allowed to say that? My bad.
You already said it.
Or they say, Dr. J, fix your face.
You said it like 3 times.
Like, I just realized, like, oh. you know what? It's such a grown room I guess my filter was off, but filter going back on.
Go ahead, girl.
But you
keep
know,
it off.
off. So, you know, like people would meet me on the days where I would pretend like I was happy, and they would take it as me being a fake person, not realizing I just had a really bad day or a horrible argument or whatever. Or I might have been walking out on my son having a swimming lesson, and now I'm here and I low-key want to be at his swimming lesson, and I'm human. So I allow myself to be human and have my moments. And so when I show up, I always show up. I always deliver. The information will be given. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to pretend if I'm happy when I'm not in a happy mood. Right? And so that's another thing I always tell people. So your voice is your voice. If you have a lane and someone else has the same lane, trust me when I tell you no two people are identical. So like one of my friends, she does financial literacy. I won't say her name, but she's like ratchet with her financial literacy, right? She got the different hair colors and the boobies all out, and but she's dropping real knowledge. And her tribe, that's what attracts them to her. But me personally speaking, that's not my style, right? I'm not gonna be in a thong talking about finance, right? But she does it.
And plus, I might be looking at that booty.
Right?
As opposed to.
Right? But she does it, and you know, and her tribe shows up, and she has 1 million+ followers. And me personally, and she talks about a lot of educational stuff. But me personally, that's just not me. I'm more of a prude, right? I'm like, if I'm not on the beach, I'm gonna cover it up, right? And so with that said, just know who you are and just follow and just be you. Your tribe will always follow you.
So
so
good.
important.
And know that who you are is good enough, right? Yeah. It's good enough. Brandice?
I had a friend who told me for years that I was operating out of a place of scarcity. And it wasn't in regards to like potential competitors, but there were so many other things. And she said, Brandice, I need you to have a mindset of abundance. I want you to know that there is enough. I want you to know that there is no lack. And it took me years to get that. But once I finally got it, I think when you operate from a place of abundance, there is really no competition because you understand that there's so much. Like literally, like we can all be in the same lane doing similar things. And guess what? There's millions and millions of people in the world. And so there's enough for all of us. I think that unlocking like the fact that there is no scarcity, that was huge for me personally. And that was probably a 5-year journey to get to that place. And then I think the second thing is I have a really good way of putting on filters. Like I can be so focused that I'm just not really paying attention to a whole lot of other things because I'm just so focused on what I want to accomplish. But one of the things that's been helpful with me getting there is knowing what I want. And once you know what you want, you can zone in on that thing, and it just helps to remove all of the distractions from everything else. And a lot of times people, especially in 2020, oh my gosh, there were all these different fashion organizations that were starting in 2020. And every time someone would do an interview with me, they would ask me or try to pit me against like another fashion organization. And I think us as women, we have a responsibility to turn that conversation around, right? And so I would always say, I love what she's doing. Isn't it amazing that there's so many organizations out here supporting Black designers and Black people in fashion? You know what? I don't think there's enough. Because when it comes to other groups, no one's saying, oh, there's too many Jewish organizations out there, or there's too many. They only come for us, I feel like, with that. And so I had to turn that around every single time. And so finally people stopped asking. And one woman, I said, before we get started, because it was a live conversation, I said, do not ask me about this in a way that tries to pit me against that person. Because I knew it was coming. And she was like, well, I said, no. We support each other, period. And so sometimes you also have to like let other people, because people can like try to feed that into you like that, like, did you see what so-and-so's doing? So you have to kind of, make sure that you're really clear because, again, competition is equated to scarcity. And you have to know that there's so much in this world. And honestly, once you do that, everything rises. Your income rises, your revenue rises, your confidence rises, because you know that there's so much.
Your sister rises.
Yeah.
How amazing was this? So it's time to wrap up, but I think we should do Q&A.
You want to do it now?
Let's do it now.
All right. Who has a burning question that you can say in under a minute?
I'll give you a minute and 30 seconds.
Come on up,
boo.
Alicia.
Wait, hold on. It's her birthday.
I'll
So
come
everyone
to
say
you.
happy
Happy
birthday to
birthday,
Here you go, love.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alicia Reese, and the question is for anyone. So you were speaking about tapping into an abundant mindset. However, for many people, when they're just starting out, abundance is not something that they can even fathom because their needs, their basic needs, aren't being met. So I'm so sorry. Yes, sir.
Thank you for that. I was like, yes.
They on it.
Feeling this.
I heard the snaps and I'm like, oh wait, he's telling me to move. I'll start again. Hi everyone, I am Alicia Reese, and my question is, you were speaking earlier, and anyone can answer of course, but you were speaking earlier about abundance and tapping into that and not having a scarcity mindset. However, for many folks, especially when your basic needs aren't being met, it can be really, really tough to even find where abundance exists. So what are some of the steps that we can take to begin to tap into that? How do we develop certain relationships to kind of cultivate that and then keep our mental through that transition and that process?
That's a great question.
That was
Great
excellent.
question.
There's
Y'all better start taking notes on that one. All right, let's go.
There's two things. For me, my faith is really important to me. Really important. And one of the things that I've had to hold on to is God has everything I need and more. And so that spiritual component for me has been like key to taking in that mindset. And then I wasn't going to call her out because I feel like I'm always calling her out on a panel, but I think it's also important that you surround yourself with people who are doing better than you and who are willing to share. And so when I first had a conversation, when I was struggling, I called Tiffany, the budgetista. And I was like,
hi, Tiff.
and I was just like, this is what I'm dealing with. This is what I'm good at, but this is what I'm really struggling with. And every time I would talk to her, I would get new ideas. And I said, look, can I just come walking with you once a quarter? And I would drive to New Jersey, and I still do. I think we just went like a month ago. And let's just talk and walk, because sometimes you need to hear somebody else's journey, and just like hearing her talk about millions. I mean, I don't think my business would have ever crossed $1 million without talking to her. I really don't, because I wasn't surrounded with that. And so I had to surround myself with the thing that I wanted and where I wanted to go. And the more I'm talking to her, I'm like, oh, okay, so this is how I get to this. And it's like changing your surroundings. And sometimes you have to seek out those relationships. Tiffany and I weren't friends. We had her on the Great Girlfriends podcast, but I knew that she knew she had some things that I needed, and so I was vulnerable enough to send her that email and say, hey, will you get on a call with me for 30 minutes? We ended up being on a call for, I think, 2.5 hours. And that one phone call that is my friend now. And that relationship is really important. And so I'm always now looking at like, okay, who else can I talk to who can get me to the next level? I'm in the process of going through a capital raise. So it's like, okay, now who can talk to me that has been through that process before, and who's willing to talk to me? And you'll be surprised, we are so open to having conversations. If we come to the table vulnerable and transparent, people will give you more than you think they will give you. Yeah. Absolutely.
Can I add to that?
Yes, of course.
So first, everything she said, and sometimes it might just even be what you read, right? So for my mentees, one of the things I do is I don't accept mentees that I can't learn from as well, because it keeps me growing and learning. And the second thing is, like, one of the books I have them all read is called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza. It's an amazing book. And sometimes we just need to read something that's going to help us, right brain and left brain, change how we're thinking or looking at the problem. There are no problems, there are solutions. Stop fixating on the problem. Yes. You don't have money, then diversify what you're trying to do to make the money. There might be a breaking point where it's insanity and you feel tired, but guess what? At least your bills will be paid and things will get done. Another thing I would like you guys to all think about our financial affirmations and checklists. It's so important that if your goal is to get to Z, that you write down the steps that you think you need to take to get to Z, and then make sure you're checking it off. And when you have those days where you don't think you're succeeding or you're accomplishing anything, look back at what you have accomplished. Because sometimes we're so busy going on to the next thing that we don't realize that we already have done 5 out of 10 of the things on our list. Yeah. And the thing is, we're adding to that list. So when we get to the 10th thing, we've added 20 more things. But we forgot that our goal earlier in the year might have been 10 things, and we did 8 of those 10 things. And we're the ones who are adding and pushing out the line. So if you're gonna have a number, like think of that number. If we have a second, can we make them do a financial affirmation as a group?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Who's down?
So
Everybody down?
Everybody down? All right. So let's stand up. Let's go.
Let's go. Shmoney, shmoney.
So
Do it.
I need this. I'm always trying to figure out where my money at.
right? And
So
so
Dr. J is stuck with me.
I'm facts, right? So when we talk about the school systems, we make every class start this way. So you're gonna do something that 300 plus schools around the US have done. And it goes, I'm gonna say the first words and I'll go like this and you guys repeat, okay? I am one idea away from being a multimillionaire.
A multi-millionaire.
Look
All
at that
right, you
volume
guys,
on
you
that
heard
back
that?
end.
So
Yes.
let's say that together. 3, 2, 1. I am one idea away from being a multimillionaire.
multi-millionaire.
All right, and did you hear what I said? So thank you, ladies. You can sit.
Y'all
And
like
so,
that, right? That
um,
feels good.
That
But
was so
realistically,
good. That's our
you-
social moment, Sib.
But realistically, you really are only one idea away. You're
Yeah.
one idea away. Sometimes it might be the right idea, and you don't need to pivot. You just need to give it enough time. And sometimes it's learning the art of pivot. So
Right.
if you have something that you're putting all this positive energy into and nothing is yielding, that might be God or the universe telling you, sis, this is not it. And that's okay to pivot. Even if you told your friend, girl, I'm gonna be a millionaire next year, and you realize if you stop the trajectory you're on, you're not gonna hit that million. You are a human being. You have the right to choose something different. Do not let your decisions be your homicide. Don't kill yourself. Don't be a suicide. Don't kill yourself. Don't kill the people around you, because when you're not doing what you love, when you're not doing what's feeding into you, you start to be that nasty person to your team, and no one wants to work with you. The list continues, and it breeds internally too, like physically. So keep that in mind.
I love
This was
that.
so good.
Yeah, no more questions?
I have one thing to say to Alicia, because as we're talking about friendship and FriendFest and the great girlfriends and support your girlfriends, sometimes that abundance is around you, and it is your girlfriends.
Yeah.
We say it all the time. It's a saying that your net worth is your net worth. And oftentimes, I think Brandice said this, is that we're not showing up transparent.
Yeah.
We're not showing up saying what we need. And that's how you really start to develop those core relationships when, like you said, you can be your authentic self. If you ever notice when you're not yourself, you attract people that years later you like, she's not my friend. I didn't like her. She didn't like me. But when you show up as your authentic self, you build those real strong relationships. So we always say that we got these $1 million friendships.
Yeah.
Clearly,
Yes.
Brandice, Dr. J, Tiffany is here. So that's, and I know that these women showed up for you, just like I know the women that show up for me. That's important. Like, these women cost money. So thank you.
Can we take one more? We got one more question?
Yes.
One more. Her hand popped up.
Go ahead.
Hey, friend. You want to come up? He's going to snap at me, and it's going to be a whole situation. He's trying to tell me I'm, like, in the way. Hi, how are you?
Lexi, nice to meet you.
Lexi?
Thank you. Hey, y'all, my name is Lexi. Oh, sorry.
You're going to say, hi, Lexi.
She got the golf right there. She had your back.
So my question is, I'm a first generation, like corporate professional, first generation everything. So when we speak about your network is your net worth, and you're immersing yourself into these types of spaces, what are some ways or cues or things that you can give to help us network properly, exude ourselves appropriately? Because we already know we can come up as the angry black woman, the bitch, whatever, and it's just we're having a bad day. So that's fine.
Well, let's first congratulate you on being the one to, right? Congratulations. You're not alone in this journey. And thank you for your question. Ladies, showing up authentically in the networking space.
I can answer this real quick and easy. I think it's It is showing up, connecting authentically, and giving what you want. You know, a lot of times we want, but we don't give the thing that we actually want. So if you give the thing you want, it will come back to you either through that person or through someone else.
And to add to that, I think a part of your question was also like, how do you do it when you're the first one to do it in your family? The first thing I would tell you is that sometimes it's okay. I know blood and we have this connotation in our lives that we're taught that you have to stick to family all the time. But guess what? If you need to go by yourself to a conference in Delaware, get up and go. If you see it, look how you're here today. I don't know if you're here with anyone, but look how you're here today, right? Enter the room. That's half the battle, is entering the room and showing up, not just for yourself, but even by yourself, because you gotta make sure you're enjoying your own company. I can't tell you how many times when I was living back in the UK, I would want to go away to like Portugal or Ibiza or someplace, and I'm like, I wanted to go to Madagascar. None of my friends wanted to go. Oh, well, I don't know. I was like, okay, guess what I did? I booked a ticket, and I was like, I'm gonna make it a whole thing. I found tour guides, and I went to Seychelles, Madagascar by my damn self for like 5 days. And it was the best trip I needed, because there were even anger points in me with my family that I needed to release. That being alone without that need to be nice and chummy, it allowed me to release a lot of anger I had. And so I think it's important when you're working corporate that you take time to decompress alone and enjoy your own company. Because when you go away like that and you allow yourself to have different experiences, you're going to randomly meet so many amazing people on that journey. So true. And I can't tell you how many loyal friends that I've had for the last 20 years, 21 years, that I've met randomly going to a dinner by myself, going to a movie by myself, going to another country by myself, going to a conference by myself, right? Because sometimes your family might not understand your next goal and aspiration. And don't look at race either. That's another thing. When we're the first generation, sometimes we're looking for someone that looks like us, but sometimes depending what your lane is, you know, you might be CMO or something, there might not be someone in that particular lane that you can have access to. But if there's someone who's Russian that has access to that, why not learn from them? Yeah. It could be a man, it could be young, it could be old, it could be a woman. Just jump in. If they're willing to teach you, learn. There's no color, no race to it. Money is green. And now the money is digital. So now there's no even color to it, right? So let's just keep that in mind.
Yes.
This is so
This is amazing. Yes.
Y'all know y'all stuck with us for the whole next few years.
Okay, well, that was our Q&A for this recording. Did you get anything out of this that you're going to take home and share? All right, well, let's clap it up for Dr. Jatali Bellanton and Brandice Daniel.
Hey, great girlfriends, it's me, Dylan, with the Motivational Minute. The quote for today is, "I have standards that I don't plan on lowering for anybody, including myself," by Zendaya. I love this quote because it really talks about not lowering your standards, and even especially for yourself. So I feel like it means that you shouldn't lower your standards just because you need to. It's like you have to keep your standards or you will change yourself, and you shouldn't have to change yourself. You should be able to stay the same. This has been Dylan with your Motivational Minute. Bye.
All right, great girlfriends. Did you enjoy this week's episode of the podcast? If so, would you please give us your amazing review on iTunes? Every single review helps another great girlfriend get plugged into the podcast and the community. Speaking of community, make sure you join our Facebook group at The Great Girlfriends. Follow us on Instagram at The Great Girlfriends and on Twitter at @the_greatGFS. I'm Sybil Amuti and I'm out. Peace.
Yay Networks.